Now, if a husband was to provide his wife with conjugal love, food and clothing, did God provide those things to Israel?
Yes, we find out what he provided and what the deal was when it comes to the divorce. As it often does, that's when the lawyers come out and that's when they start deciding where the fault lies. And you find it in Ezekiel. It's very clearly tabulated what God did and what Israel did and what the grounds were for that divorce. God lists everything he did for Israel and then what Israel did with those gifts. Remember, the slave wife, she had to be given food and clothing and love. And this is what God gives to Israel, but not just any food, luxurious food, not just any clothing, luxurious clothing. And so he loves so profoundly. Here in Ezekiel 16, a chapter which will never be read out in Sunday school, we have the nation of Israel being found in the desert. Then I came back when you were grown up. I passed by and I saw you and saw that you were of an age for love. I spread the corner of my garment over you. That's a euphemism for love. And I entered into a covenant with you, says the Lord God, and you became mine. I bathed you, I washed you, I adorned you anointed you with oil, I clothed you. And now he's coming into what the terms of this covenant is. The covenants that you make with someone when you marry them. You promise love, you promise clothing, you promise food. So I clothed you not just with ordinary clothing, but I clothed you with embroidered cloth and shod you with fine leather, wrapped you in fine linen and covered you with silk. Put bracelets on your wrists and chains on your neck and a ring on your nose and a beautiful crown on your head. You were adorned with gold and silver. Your clothes were of fine linen and costly fabric, embroidered cloth, not just ordinary clothes. Your food was fine flour, honey, olive oil, and you became very beautiful and rose to be like a queen.
So there's the food and the clothing.
Yeah.
And it even goes into jewellery items, and
yes.
So she was fit not just as a wife but as a queen.
Right.
Okay.
And God loved her profoundly, but then you trusted in your beauty and used your fame to become a prostitute, and you lavished your favours on anyone who passed by. And then those things that God gave her, the food and the clothing, she gave to the idols. You took some of your garments to make gaudy high places where you carried on your prostitution. And you took some of the fine jewellery I gave you, jewellery made of gold and silver, and you made yourselves male idols and engaged in prostitution with them. And you took the embroidered clothes, put on them, on the idols. You offered my oil and my incense before them. All the food I provided for you, the fine flour, olive oil, honey, as I gave you to eat, you offered as a fragrant incense before them. So she was taking the food and the clothing that had been given to her and using it to adorn the idols, to feed the idols in offerings, and blatantly to make love to those idols. You see, these things are named not just because they're important gifts. It doesn't mention other things which might have been given, but it clearly hones in on food and clothing and love, which were thrown in God's face, if you like, by being given to the idols. Very clear reference to those grounds for divorce, the neglect of food, clothing and love, which is mentioned for the slave wife, the very bottom of the pile in Exodus 21. Here, right at the top, the queen married to God. You have the same rights there, the same requirements within the marriage vows.
And we have the same thing in Hosea.
Yeah, that's there where you have this wording, which is very similar to ancient Near Eastern divorce practices, that she is not my wife and I am not her husband. Again, you have the reasons given. She's not acknowledged that I'm the one who gave her the grain, the new wine, the oil, lavished on her the silver and gold which they used for Baal. Like in Ezekiel, she's taking the food and the clothing and she's sending it to her lovers instead of to her husband. Of course, what she was supposed to do is use the food to feed her husband, use the clothing, to use the cloth to make materials to clothe her husband and return his love. That's in an ordinary human marriage.